Very warm good evening to all. I welcome you all to this book reading session organized by Vidhi Talks and Indian Law Institute at this auspicious place and a very vibrant, in this very vibrant atmosphere in this historic Le Corbusier rooftop cafe of the Punjab and Haryana High Court premises. We are very thankful to the Honorable Chief Justice for giving us the permission to access this rooftop cafe. And we'll be starting with the book session, the first book reading session on an autobiography of Justice Leila Seth. She has been an inspiration in the field of law for many female advocates and young students also. So we have with us Advocate Amrita Garg. She'll be sharing her insights on the book, and a brief has been circulated to you, so you can please open that also.
Hi, good evening. I thank you all for being here, and I thank the Indian Law Institute State Unit for starting this initiative. I believe Mr. Suvir Sidhu is not here, but this is one of his initiatives, so I'd like to thank him as well. If you've had the chance to look at the brief note that was circulated, the format that we'll be following today is that I will be following the chronological timeline of the book itself. I'll read some of the excerpts from the book that had a profound impact on me or reflect the wit and humor of the author, and then we'll open the house to discussion. So I'll dive right in. Leila Seth, as you know, is a woman of many firsts. We all know she was the first woman judge of the Delhi High Court. She was the first Chief Justice of any High Court in India. And she was also the first woman to top the London bar exam. For most of us who joined this profession, especially as women who are stepping into this profession, she's always been a revered name. Leila Seth was one name that we heard while completing our law, and once we joined the field of litigation. She was always a role model and an inspiration, I'm sure, for many of us, including for me. This book, On Balance, her autobiography, in her own words, came about as a result of long years of persistent encouragement from family and friends, and a fracture which resulted in her being confined to the house for some months. It is also maybe a commentary on the turbulent times that Leila Seth lived through. And I believe that she also wanted to preserve those memories for future generations. It is also a deeply personal account of how a upper middle class convent educated woman who was married when she was barely 21 was called to the London bar soon thereafter, within the next few years, how she then subsequently returned to India and started her law practice in a place like Patna, and thereafter in Calcutta, and her eventual elevation to the bench and her life post-retirement. So that is the chronology that the book also takes, and the manner in which I will also be talking about the book. Now I'd like to share why I was attracted to the book, why I picked it up. Embarrassingly enough, the first reason was not Justice Leila Seth herself, but her son Vikram Seth's book, A Suitable Boy, which is one of my favorite books. I wanted to know where he'd drawn the inspiration from, and that is how I ended up reading this. The second, of course, was a sense of curiosity to know what was the driving force that led Leila Seth to make a space for herself in what was predominantly a male bastion until then. Leila Seth was born on Diwali Day, 1930, to parents who were unusually progressive for the times. Her father was from the village of Biswan in UP. He was an engineer in the Imperial Railway Service, and her mother, the daughter of a renowned radiologist, had been educated at a missionary school. Leila Seth was herself educated at the Loreto Convent in Darjeeling and later completed her bachelor's in English from the Calcutta University. As such, she had received a very Western education. She admits as much in her book, where she writes, "I write in English because English is the only language I know well. It is the language in which, unlike my mother, I think and dream." I think her son puts her better when he says that my mother tongue is Hindi, but my mother's tongue is English. So influenced was Leila by her convent school education that she had at one time decided to become a nun. She also thought it would make things less complicated for her family. At least there'd be no there would be no marriage that would have to be arranged by them. However, she was soon disabused of this notion, thankfully, and she entered the legal profession. Leila Seth did not have an easy childhood. She suffered from ill health throughout, and this was followed by her father's death when she was merely 11. The family found themselves in dire financial straits, and they were compelled to live on the kindness of neighbors in Darjeeling for many, many years. At this time, the country itself was also going through major upheaval, and Seth was first-hand witness to the freedom struggle as well as the ensuing violence of partition. About partition, she has written in her book, and I will read out. A new name had been coined, a new nation came into existence, and I had to learn to redraw the map of my country. On the western side, Mother India had lost part of her head, shoulder, arm, and elbow. And on the eastern side, a curious piece resembling that of a jigsaw puzzle. Even now, 56 years later, I find it hard to look at the map without a twinge. After completing her schooling at Darjeeling, Leila worked for some time as a stenographer at the Assam Rail Link project due to the family's financial circumstances. Soon she got married to Prem Seth, who worked with the Bata Shoe Company and was then placed at Bata Nagar near Calcutta. They had their first child, Vikram, when she was 21, and in 1954 they moved to London when her husband was transferred there. This would be the turning point in Leila Seth's life. While in London, Leila first completed a 6-month Montessori diploma course, hoping to open a nursery school once they returned to India. However, her desire to study further led her to apply for admission to the London Bar. Not, as she says, out of any particular love or aptitude for the law, but only because she needed a course where the attendance requirements were not very strict, as she had a young child at home. This was the first of many balancing acts that Leila Seth would have to undertake between her personal and professional life in the course of time. However, when the bar final results were declared in 1957, Leila Seth first tasted recognition, with her name appearing in many newspapers. One newspaper even went thus. Time was when the phrase, a fair young English girl, meant the ideal of womanhood. It meant a girl who could be trusted alone, if need be, because of the innate purity and dignity of her nature, but who was neither bold in bearing nor masculine in mind. A girl who, when she married, would be her husband's friend and companion, but never his rival. So ran the lament of Mrs. Lynn Linton in Saturday Review for 1868. But worse was to come. In one more decade, they were founding women's colleges at Oxford. And in the final honours schools for 1957, Lady Margaret Hall took, it just appears, the highest percentage of first and second classes. St. Hilda's had the second highest, Somerville the third highest, and St. Anne's the fifth highest. Only Queen's among the men's colleges was in the first 5 places. The announcement was on Monday. The masculine world of learning was taking a ruminative pull on its pipe, preparatory to advancing a complete explanation for this little lot, when on Thursday, a chasm opened from which nothing has since been heard, save faint little gasps for help. This was the publication of the Michaelmas Bar examination results. 508 students, the vast majority of them male, sat the final examination. Of these, only 152 passed in full. Of these 152, only 10 obtained distinction. Of these 10, 3 were women. And one of them, a married woman, came first. I believe this was to be a lifetime motive of Leila Seth's life, where she would be turning heads wherever she went, whether it was at a time at the London Bar or once she was back in India. When the Seths returned to Calcutta, Leila now set out to find a senior to apprentice under. After much effort, she finally shortlisted Barrister Sachin Chaudhary at the Calcutta High Court. It was a rare occurrence in the 1950s for a woman to join the profession and required some persistence to succeed. which became clear from how her interaction with Mr. Chaudhary went. She says of it, "I was full of fear and trepidation when I went to meet him, but put on a brave and smiling expression. Despite the fact that he had some idea why I had come, he wanted to be clear about the matter and asked me why, in his grave and gruff manner. After I told him, he said, 'Instead of joining the legal profession, young woman, go and get married.' I replied, 'But sir, I'm already married.' 'Then go and have a child,' he advised. I responded, 'I have a child.' 'It is not fair to the child to be alone, so young lady, you should have a second child.' I replied, 'Mr. Chaudhary, I already have 2 children.' Taken aback for a third time, he said, 'Then come and join my chambers. You're a persistent young woman and will do well at the bar.' However, this struggle would then follow her later to Patna and back to Calcutta for much of her professional life. In 1959, when Leila Seth joined the Patna High Court, she was one of the only 2 women practicing there. She became the subject of much curiosity, and on one occasion, a large crowd gathered to see and hear her at a magistrate's court in Chhapra, as they'd never seen a woman lawyer before, and were astounded that such a creature even existed. She also had to deal with malicious rumors that being a woman, and a fashionable one at that, she was not serious about the cases that she undertook. And she also had great difficulty in finding a house on rent as a woman and a lawyer in Delhi. Just an aside here, I think this is still the situation for most of us, even today, and even in Chandigarh. And she was to suffer the debilitating lack of proper facilities, including even toilets in the courts for women. A more telling instance, however, of this ingrained discriminatory attitude against women lawyers was when she gave a legal opinion to a client. He refused to accept it, saying that it must come endorsed by a man. As one of our colleagues advised her then, to succeed in the legal profession as a woman, it was not enough to be equal to any man. Rather, she had to be equal plus. This was also the time when Leila Seth struggled to balance work and family. What was it, I wondered as I read the book, that kept her going then? It was partly, as she acknowledges in the book, the unflinching support of her family. But I believe that the more important factor was her own grit and her determination to succeed despite, or perhaps due to the odds being stacked against her. Leila Seth is also a conscientious chronicler of the times, and nowhere is it more apparent in this book than her chapter on the period of emergency, to which she had front row seats as a lawyer practicing at the Delhi High Court. Of these times, she writes, "At the time, it was not possible to contemplate that things would change again. The Supreme Court had shamed itself. The press had been censored more by themselves than by the censors. They were required to stoop, but they chose to crawl. Most of the bureaucracy bent over backwards to please Indira Gandhi and that extra constitutional authority, her son, Sanjay. Some people felt that Mrs. Gandhi had virtually abdicated in Sanjay's favor and wondered what sort of influence he had over his mother. Even some of her supporters were worried that the emergency was turning into his personal idiosyncratic dictatorship. Those rare souls who spoke out, even restrainedly, were either transferred to innocuous posts or else kicked up and out of the country. Our good friend, Dr. Ajit Mazumdar, who was secretary in the finance ministry and had the temerity to mildly query one of Mrs. Gandhi's dubious fiats to her face, was suddenly sent off to Manila. But there was no dearth of people who were willing to comply and sing songs of Indira's greatness. The Congress Party president, Dev Kanta Barua, went so far as to proclaim, "Indira is India and India is Indira." After the proclamation of emergency on the basis of internal disturbance and the clampdown on the press, I decided to keep the newspaper of 25th June 1975 in order to be able to show my grandchildren, if I ever had any, that we once had a free press. I thought that the emergency might never end. During this time, when these events were taking place in the country, Leila Seth was also carving a niche for herself at the Delhi High Court, and she would soon represent important clients, including the Rajmata of Gwalior, and be designated as one of the first senior advocates at the Delhi High Court. She was also offered a judgeship at the Patna High Court twice during this time, in 1972 and 1974, but both times she chose to put it down in favor of keeping her family together in Delhi, as she thought that her husband would not be able to find any work at Patna. It was also a trying time personally for her, as her husband faced a frivolous CBI inquiry at his workplace, and her children moved away, first to boarding school and then later abroad for higher education. In 1978, Leila Seth became the first woman to be elevated as a judge to the Delhi High Court on the recommendation of the then Chief Justice Tatachari. This was not only a recognition of her standing at the bar, but also a turning point in her life, as she now found herself having to adjust from being a mere player in the game to being the umpire. Of this change, she has written, I was used to arguing and doing the best for my client and case, and then letting the damn judge decide. I soon realized that I was now that damn judge, and that the tremendous responsibility now stopped with me. As the first woman to be appointed a judge at the High Court, she became something of a cause célèbre. However, the patriarchal attitude so ingrained in society ensured that even as a judge, she was first viewed as a woman. And as soon as she joined the Delhi High Court, her brother judges commented that now that they had a woman in their midst, she could take care of all the tea arrangements at their next celebration. This is where Leila Seth put her foot down and insisted that she would do no such thing. The novelty, however, refused to wear off, and she recounts an incident when her courtroom was packed with a large crowd for reasons unknown to her. On being asked, her reader informed her that it was a group of farmers whom the Prime Minister, Charan Singh, had invited to Delhi. They had just visited the Delhi Zoo, and next, they had come to see the woman judge in the Delhi High Court. The pervasive lack of respect given to women's labor has been elucidated beautifully by Leila Seth in her book, as she recounts that it was only after she was sworn in as the Chief Justice of the Himachal Pradesh High Court in 1988 and was living by herself, away from her family, that she realized how differently she'd been treated in her own home. She writes, living in Simla on my own as Chief Justice, I found that the household revolved around my needs. The staff at home was there to look after me and to ensure that I was comfortable. This was a new experience for me. In the morning, the newspapers were at my sole disposal, the bathroom available at my convenience, breakfast served at a time of my choosing, and the car ready at my command. In the evening, the fire would be lit and the room heated and cheery for my return. In my earlier homes, my needs had always been considered last. The man of the house, whatever his job, was treated in a special manner. Everything revolved around his needs, and it was accepted that he could never be disturbed when he was working. On the other hand, I, as a working woman, was treated differently. The servants thought nothing of coming and disturbing me for every domestic inquiry and problem. The children felt that they could walk into my office at home and complain about some triviality, even if I was in the middle of writing a judgment. At Simla, for the first time, I felt like a person in my own right. And this attitude of the staff somehow also rubbed off on my family when they came to visit. Perhaps it is these and such like experiences that would mold Leila Seth's thinking and make her a lifelong champion of female education and gender equality. During her time at the Delhi and Himachal Pradesh High Court, Seth had delivered several remarkable judgments, especially in the fields of tax law and family law. However, despite being considered for elevation to the Supreme Court, certain extraneous considerations ensured that she was bypassed by another. Thus, she retired in 1992 after a long and illustrious career, first at the bar and then on the bench, breaking several glass ceilings along the way and laying a path for generations of women after her, including me. Post-retirement, Leila Seth vacated her official residence and moved to her own house in Noida. However, the leisurely life of a retiree did not suit her remarkably spirited nature, and she soon enrolled in an environmental law course at the Worldwide Fund for Nature and later became its vice president. She started undertaking various arbitration matters. This was also the period which saw a rise in communal tensions in the country with the demolition of the Babri Masjid and the subsequent riots in 2002. Leila Seth rose to the occasion and became a vociferous advocate for communal harmony and the preservation of the secular fabric of the nation, including as the executive committee chairperson of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, which submitted a detailed report on the riots. Of these times, Leila Seth writes, "Though I had no intention of going out of my way to put my neck on the block, I certainly felt very strongly about our composite culture and the freedom of minorities to practice their religion. I was appalled at the manner in which it was being destroyed by fundamentalists. When we were very young, my father, while teaching us the Gayatri Mantra, had told us that tolerance and respect for the rights and beliefs of others was an intrinsic part of Hinduism, which was the most Catholic of religions. I felt, therefore, that this was too important a matter to let pass, even if one were harassed or persecuted for it." She's also elucidated the role of women when it comes to communal harmony. "I believe that women are a great healing and unifying force. Across castes and religions, they share similar difficulties. For example, the lack of economic independence, which leads to their subjugation and suppression. They feel the pain of others and empathize with them. They can sense the silent sorrow of another woman at the loss of a child, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, a relative, or a friend. The utter agony of not having food for one's family or a home in which to shelter them. Women have an inner strength and the strength to survive. But when they themselves become virulent leaders, encouraging mob murder and screaming for blood, then hope for even future healing subsides." Leila Seth was also appointed as chair of the Commission of Inquiry to look into the custodial death of Rajan Pillai, the cashew baron. She used this opportunity to look into the wider question of the state of prisoners in Indian prisons and made recommendations for improvement of medical and sanitation facilities provided to them. Her most important contribution to my mind, however, was as a member of the 15th Law Commission, which made several key recommendations, including on reforms in electoral laws, toning down unduly harsh provisions of the terrorism laws so as to prevent abuse and preserve rights of the accused, free and compulsory education for all, which was a lifelong project that Leila Seth undertook, granting compulsory rights to daughters under Hindu personal law, widening the scope of rape laws with more stringent provisions, and removing gender-based anomalies in the Indian Divorce Act. There is a sense of social justice that pervades all the work that Leila Seth did during this time, post her retirement. She later carried forward this legacy as a member of the Justice J.S. Verma Committee on Rape Laws in wake of the Nirbhaya case, as well as her contribution to the draft bill, which later took the form of the Senior Citizens Act. She thereafter also remained involved with several NGOs, including the Multiple Action Research Group, and was a vocal advocate for the decriminalization of same-sex relations, which saw the light of day soon after her death in 2017. As I came to the end of this book, I want to share the profound impact that reading it had on me. This was a woman who was an exemplary and pioneering professional. She was an unconventional woman with a conventional upbringing who made her place in a still conservative society at a time when women were relegated to home and hearth. However, she also donned at the same time the mantle of an extremely supportive partner to husband Prem Seth and a doting mother to all 3 children. It was perhaps her own belief in an individual's right to the freedom of choice that she was able to encourage and celebrate the somewhat very unconventional personal and professional choices that her 3 children would make in their lives. Her eldest son, Vikram, after doing his master's and PhD in economics, gave that up to become a full-time writer. Her second son undertook a course in shoemaking, but gave that up and went on the path of Zen Buddhism. And her daughter, Aradhana, chose a career in films. Thinking about this, I went back to the cover of the book and wondered why it was that Leila Seth chose this particular title. She has explained this somewhere towards the end of the book. I'll just read out that bit. As I established my legal practice, there were times when I had to choose between giving priority to work obligations or to family commitments. I juxtaposed, maneuvered, and adjusted, but the flow of neither stream ever stopped. Luckily, I never had to make the dreadful choice of following one to the exclusion of the other. I always knew in my heart that it would be very hard if I had to choose, but that, of course, my family would come first. The balancing act has not been easy. Two considerations have, however, helped me. One thing I realized quite early on is that if you're sincere with your work and you love your family, you can share your problems and difficulties with them. It is surprising what solutions can emerge through consensus. Even small children who want as much as they can get of their mother's time make suggestions that show their selflessness. For one thing, they can get into the shoes of someone in desperate trouble who needs their mother's help in her capacity as a lawyer or other professional. For another, just as a mother feels good about helping her children sort out their problems, they too feel good helping to sort out hers. The second consideration is that, in some ways, doing two different kinds of work is less stressful than doing only one. When I felt stressed by my legal work, I switched to housework and vice versa. This change of occupation was itself a form of relaxation. Vikram Seth, her eldest son, in the foreword to the book has put it a little more succinctly, where he says, because of the many strands in the book, it was always going to be difficult to choose a title. On balance refers not only to the scales of justice and the balancing of work and private life, but also to Mama's natural bent for weighing things judiciously before talking or writing about them. Still, this did not prevent her from discussing not only joyful happenings and public achievements, but also difficult and in some cases deeply painful matters, whether in her professional or in her family life. Apart from this, I believe that the title of the book also speaks to the many everyday balancing acts that all of us are called to undertake, irrespective of gender or profession. This book gives us an opportunity to introspect and reevaluate the scales on which we weigh our priorities. In another respect, this book also calls for us to contemplate whether much has changed for women in this profession or society in general since Leila Seth's time. There are, of course, many more women who have made a name for themselves in this field, and perhaps we would no longer have a crowd gathering to see the novel sight of a woman in the courtroom. In fact, our High Court itself has made remarkable strides in this respect. However, I believe that this book has only shown us the way, and it is incumbent upon us to forge ahead and carry out the work that she started and others of her ilk started. So perhaps, finally, someday, we may achieve that perfect balance. I now invite you all to share your thoughts. Thank you for being so patient.
Just a continuation of a discussion we were having with Amrita yesterday. And it's striking the fact that Justice Leila Seth becomes a judge in 1978. That's merely 45 years. In 45 years, the kind of strides we've made, and from the only judge we have had now judges across, and 50% of the district judiciary has women. The High Court has several women judges. We'll have a women Chief Justice of India. We've had them earlier also. But the question is, and I am seeing parallels in this journey with, she becomes a judge pretty much at the same time when, I mean, a little earlier, in fact, than, say, Ruth Bader Ginsburg becomes a judge. And what was interesting was both come from decently affluent families, but both had to move from their place of work. So Leila Seth goes abroad to UK, becomes a barrister, works there. Justice RBG goes and works in Sweden on a project in the 70s, comes back and is then recognized as a judge. So maybe just the fact that as women they had to work twice, thrice, four times harder than other people. And what is interesting is I've never seen a book by a male judge talking about his family in this detail. Talking about, I mean, of course, no one, most male judges don't have Vikram Seth as their son, I mean, who writes suitable point. It's different. I mean, you can have an entire book about someone as, as exemplary and as well-read as him and well-written as him. But the question is that the fact that she's taking up so many mantles, not only as a judge, as a citizen, as a visionary legal scholar, and as a mother, which is a role which many male judges don't even think of when they are writing their books. So thank you so much for talking about this book and bringing it to this audience. Thanks a lot. And thank you to the organizers for having this wonderful session.
I think her legal career has been formed through many stages. Like it has evolved basically. Her legal career has evolved. She learned in UK, went to the law college in UK, then subsequently her practice shaped up in Calcutta, then Delhi. So she had a vast experience and varied experience actually in the legal field. So I think as young lawyers and as young students of law always, we can take inspiration from that.
I think that was also a function of her being a woman, because she had to kind of follow her husband wherever his job took him, right?
Yes.
I mean, it would never have happened the other way around.
Yeah.
So I think that is also something she's talked about in the book, but eventually it shaped up all for the good.
Yeah.
Harish wants to say something.
Yes. So thank you, Amrita, and thank you, organizers, for this wonderful session. Taking cue from Karan, like, when can we have a stop on discussing the firsts? Tanu is here, Anjali is here, Amrita is here, and I'm sure there are other female friends over here. You know, what the challenge is for being a female lawyer. Like for a male, I don't think we ever had to think of those judgmental gazes at all. You know, it came as to us to choose a profession. I would love to have some reflection from my female friends over here, Tanu as well. Has something improved that we can say that we have moved towards a phase of removing those firsts ever? Or are these systems in place? Or I feel this entire place is an arbitrary place as far as gender is concerned. We might love to boast about many things. We have a separate female bar room, which in my understanding should not have been there, but yet it is required. It is required. I am saying no. No, I am contradicting. Just a minute. So no. Let me tell you what. In my observation, the gender disparity is so much. Had that not been placed reserved, I think the female lawyers wouldn't have been able to take a seat basically. So it's sort of an evil required basically right now. Why so? As being a female lawyer, you must be knowing more. My young friends are also there. Please, I would love to hear more from. We males have also talked again. I would love to now give mic to my other counterparts now. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Harish. Even if you have not given this mic to me, I would have snatched it anyways. And And before I come to what Harish wants me to speak, I really want to say congratulations to all the organizers and my deep appreciation for Amrita. I would do it by standing because you really spoke so well. It was actually, when Sweet told me in the morning about it, I was like, oh, you asking me, so I have to go. And it's such a boring thing. Who will go for the book reading? I have to see, look at the camera. No, let me be very casual. Yeah, I want to look at the people who I'm addressing. Yes, no, it's all right. Don't forget about it. Forget about it. So, but it was so mesmerizing, your voice, the way you spoke, your narration, the way you picked up the excerpts from the book, and the way you related, it was amazing. Really, you have it in you, and we are very happy that you conducted the first session and we all were here. So now coming back to Harish's question, I'll take your 5 minutes. I hope nobody is in hurry. When I joined this profession in 2003, I was very much convinced in my own, I would say why I'm saying was, in my own understanding that I'm a professional, and those who know me, when I used to speak in 2004 and 5 discussions, that the prefix of male and a female lawyer does not exist. We all are here because we have our LLB degrees and we want to be a lawyer. So it is, we cannot say that because a female lawyer is doing other things at home and a man lawyer is preparing the case for 4 hours. We took care of our home, our kids for the 4 hours. So we should be given relief over that person who has worked harder than us. No, I always believed that time, that if you really want to be a good professional, you have to put one thing in your mind, that you are a professional. After being almost more than 2 decades in this journey, now I am admitting, I never felt discriminated that time. In 2003, when I joined the profession, rather it was a kind of a privilege. Being a woman, when there were very few lawyers, women practicing law at that time, I used to just tell the court about the prayer in the petition and what are the offenses, because I basically was in Chima Saab's office, most of the matters were criminal, and the judge used to be so happy. And I was like, oh, this girl argues so well. I said, no, I just said the prayer. Because that was the standard that time. Okay, a girl has come, she just knows about the prayer, she knows about the offenses, she knows the law. Gradually, definitely we worked hard, we knew about the law also, and we made our submissions accordingly. And I think, at the cost of immodesty, that I could make my place that yes, I do know my law. But now, after 20 years of journey, what I have found is, today only, a new associate has joined me and she was saying, ma'am, बहुत गुस्सा करते हैं. I was like, I have never seen a lawyer who doesn't get angry on inefficiency of a clerk or a junior. But a female lawyer will be pointed out if she is angry. I don't know. I mean, in the court also, I have been told you are aggressive. I have seen a male lawyer more aggressive than me. But just because I never felt a discrimination 20 years back. But now, after 20 years, when I think I am a lawyer, I should be. Now it is pointed out that whatever is good for the men lawyer, that they are aggressive, they take stand, they don't yield before the judges, is a negative to the female lawyer. That she is aggressive, she's angry, she does it, she's like that. So now I feel little discrimination, and I really fail to understand why this journey, which started so beautifully and now has brought me to this place, that now I feel that yes, there is a discrimination which I never felt before. So that's my story, one side, but I still believe, and that this profession has taught me, that being a woman, being a man, and being a professional is a totally 3 different things. We should not mix it up. When we celebrate women, we should celebrate women as a woman. It is very beautiful. I don't know from where this conditioning has come in our life, that successful life only means successful professional life. No. I will not mince word to share with all of you. Yes, I believe I'm a successful professional, but in my personal life, I made a mess of it. Because, and I think, again, reading from the book she wrote, when you join the profession, you should be married, you should be having your kids, you should be done all your home responsibilities, then you join the profession, because otherwise you get in the trap where you think that you have to be validated by this. Most of that, I don't know about you, all of you. I believe we choose profession for the external validations. Our personal life is not for external validation, that's for innermost happiness. And then as a girl, when we have to prove ourselves, we are not sufficient as girls. Like, how do we get those advertisements for against female feticide? Oh, she can be a champion. Why? A boy doesn't need to be champion. A boy is born in the house and is celebrated. Why a girl has to be a champion and a gold medalist only to be allowed to be born in the world? A girl is sufficient as a girl. So I believe, as a woman, we should celebrate ourselves just as a woman. And men should also celebrate them as just as a man. Professional is different. So I agree with Karan that I think a day should come when we should not go in not only on the first, second, third, but we should not discuss the professionals also as a woman or a man lawyer or a judge. They should be just good judges, good lawyers who brought these changes in the system, irrespective of the gender. And we should definitely celebrate our manhood and womanhood as it is without mixing it up with the profession, especially for the women. On the Women's Day, we should celebrate the women who have done something as a woman. And then only the changes will come in the society, when girls will not have to be like me in the search and running after external validation, sacrifice your personal innermost happiness. And this is, again, Abhi, life is to go on. It's not ended. So I'm sharing it with all of you. This external validation does not matter. Our innermost happiness also matters a lot. Thank you so much once again to the organizers for... Anybody? Now, Harish has trapped me. Who can I trap? Kanu? Have to speak. You are nodding a lot, so up to my...
Since I'm contesting for the post of president, and the mandate of the bar will tell me whether there is discrimination or not, whether they are, looking up to me as a woman or a president only. So definitely the mandate of the bar. So thank you so much. I'll comment after 28th of February. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful session. I feel like the discussions that we have in such places, especially for men and women also, we talked about why should there be a bar room, especially for women. I think it's extremely important because given the current scenario, or the scenario from the last few years, I feel like there is a lot of gender disparity, and women don't know the right place to discuss what they face, and that in turn has a lot of problems in the profession. So I feel like although we talk about gender neutrality and there should be like a common bar room, but having a female-specific bar room, I think, is one step towards that, towards a gender-neutralized society, and where everybody can talk to each other as equals. So that's all I wanted to add. I feel like it's extremely important to have a different bar room, and it's good to be seeing so many people talking about women's rights, and it's good.
Karan sir will share something with all of us, and then I think he'll conclude with a vote of thanks.
A very sizable number is here. Out of you all, there are few frequent faces. I must acknowledge the presence of my dear sister Tanu ma'am. It's been last 18 years. I remember attending similar kind of functions and she used to be there at that point in time also. Arjun is here, Harish is there. I know they're all book lovers, and the moment we thought that we'll have a book reading session, all people who like books are here. I must tell you how come we landed up at this place. Me, Suvirji, Nirmal, we all were having a stall. We were discussing about these academic sessions, and we came on this floor. And then from these glasses, we came across this beautiful cafe, and we requested the Honorable Chief Justice that if we can get this particular cafe for academic discussions. The administration of the High Court and the Honorable Chief Justice were very gracious enough to extend this cafe to us, where we could have this wonderful session. And I must tell you that this is a very sizable number. It is very inspiring. And you all came for this particular session. I must also thank my friend Amrita, who has spoken so well about Justice Leila Seth. And when we talk about Justice Leila Seth and we say that she was the first woman judge, my aspiration as part of all of you, as part of this fraternity, is that there will be a day when the counting of firsts would not be there at all, where there will be no reference to being first woman in this, when there will be no reference to being first woman judge or first additional solicitor general or first solicitor general. The space would be more gender neutral, and whenever after 20 years when we come across for a book reading session about some biography, there will be no references to that she was first in any sense. There will be a more neutral, gender neutral space. That's the aspiration. This event is being organized under the aegis of Indian Law Institute. The institute has always been very, very prompt in allowing us to have academic discussions. And I must say also to all of you that whatever you have in mind, we have, as you can see from January onwards, we are having sessions very frequently. If you have something to talk about, it could be a judgment, it could be a book, it could be a leading landmark case law, or any preposition which you think that like-minded people should have an access to, please come forward. It will be lovely to have a similar kind of arrangement in future also. Thank you so much.